Happy Friday. Today, for our audition preparation series, we have our special guest is Melissa Barrett, who's acting concertmaster with the Jacksonville Symphony. Hey, Melissa.
Hope you're all well.
I hope you're well. So
Okay.
So of course we're gonna talk about Schumann's First Symphony today, fourth movement, which is excerpt number 3 on our violin audition list for Philharmonic this year. Great, so let me pull up screen share so that we can see the excerpt. All right, so here it is. This is from, like I said, the fourth movement of Schumann's First Symphony, and this is actually a lot trickier than it looks pretty tricky, but I think it's trickier than it looks, right, Melissa?
Yes, it really is. It requires a lot of various bow techniques and details and articulation.
Great, yeah, this looks like the articulative variation is tricky here. So,
yes.
So what I've talked about in all of our videos, and this, because of the technical challenges in this, the bow control, rhythm is going to potentially be sacrificed if we're not careful about how we practice this.
Yes, I think there are a couple things that you have to go into it with even before you put your metronome on to consider. Number one is it's the fourth movement and it's basically a light movement. After the introduction, the tempo section is lighter and you don't want to feel panicked or anything when you play it. The other thing is when you first approach that, you might want to just do separate bows just to get it even.
Okay.
And then you can put the bowing in that's in there and be very observant because the hooks, sometimes you might slur them by accident or vice versa.
Oh, okay.
One other thing that can help going into it is if you consider the phrasing. For example, if you just look at the tempo and you see you see a bunch of notes and you see, oh, that's hard. Whereas if you think of it, you phrase it that way, keep calm, then the rhythm will kind of solve itself.
Great. So you mentioned a lot of slow, separate bow practicing to make sure that we get the rhythm really solid even before we start to get it up to tempo. Can you show us how you might start to approach this?
Sure. Even I'd actually start for pitch too, the same way.
Okay.
And that is under tempo. You've got plenty of time now. It's only April. So if you approach it from the foundation up, they're going to be in great shape. Like, one thing to keep in mind is that you're going to practice it in context from when you play it in tempo. What that means is it's piano. When you play it up to tempo, you're not going to use a lot of bow. You're going to keep it close to the string and in the middle of the bow. I would just do it like that evenly. You can do it with a metronome. And then, as you get faster, if you just use this kind of stroke, then you can add the bowing, but don't try to bounce very much. Something like this that needs to be absolutely together and precise. You need to start from the string and stay close to the string.
Okay, I'm going to make you a little bigger for a second so you can show us up close exactly how little bow you're using.
That much.
Wow. Wow.
So when I'm practicing it under tempo, that doesn't sound like that's going to help us at the end, but it really does, because then we're not going
yeah.
The tone thing. We'll have a bad tone. We won't be together.
Yeah, and I know I talked with Jorge earlier about the Mendelssohn Scherzo excerpt for the violas, and he mentioned the same thing, to stay on the string, and when you get up to tempo, the bow will sound light instead of trying to bounce.
Actually, you might see your stick bounce. I'm not trying to bounce. But you can, it looks like it's bouncing, but the hair is on the string. Okay? Like that. So you really don't try to bounce much at all.
Okay.
Because it's supposed to be light and it'll just kind of work. You're playing in the right part of the bow and everything, it should be fine. Just bounce on it.
Okay, and I saw you, so you mentioned practicing the rhythm maybe just on an open string or something with that much bow, with the correct slurs.
Yeah, you could play, like what I'm doing now on one note. I would do that just to get it going. There it is. See, it's concise and no extra motion.
Great.
And I could add the notes slowly, like that.
I love that isolating of the right hand, I think, and just to get the.
That's how we performed this season, and excuse me, that's how I had to practice it. I know a lot of times you students think that if you're a professional, oh, you know that, just practice it a couple times. So this is tricky, and it took a long time.
Yeah, so that's a lot of what is going to make this excerpt tricky. What else is tricky about this excerpt that might go awry in the audition room?
Intonation. First of all, there's some leading tones, and for example, even at the beginning, that's really the main outline. But it's right, and same thing the next bar. So those are little suspensions, actually.
Yeah.
To me, that helps me phrase if I go toward those.
Yeah.
But another thing that's helpful with intonation is if you look for places where you can set a double stop. For example, it's the third bar of the tempo. You can play. You can set your hand ahead of time for 2 notes at a time. Okay? That way, when you get there and you've got to cross strings and everything, you won't be, you know that feeling we've all had before?
Yeah, so practicing these bigger intervals, like right here,
Yes.
as chords.
Set the 2 notes at a time as a double stop.
Great.
And then you move your left hand half as much,
Right.
half as many times. I find that double stops, tuning and double stops, and then any chance you have to check with open strings. There are as many in this key.
Yeah.
You could check with open strings.
Great.
With string crossings in the odd tempo, because you're dealing with a little faster tempo, and we talked about using little bows, it's also helpful when you're crossing the string, whether you have a separate note or a slur, keep very close to the next string. Do not lift high at all. Stay almost on the string if it's short, because it will cause you to work harder than you need to, and it will throw your rhythm off.
Okay, so where's one? Oh, let's talk about maybe one of these bars.
How about the one where we were talking about right there, when we were talking about setting your fingers in double stops?
Yeah.
Right there.
Can you show us again how little your arm moves and how?
Okay.
Yeah.
This is what we tend to do when we get excited. Whereas we want to practice just using the wrist. We can go faster and stay in tempo and not get erratic with our rhythm.
So would you practice that exercise just maybe on open strings slowly?
Yeah, I would actually. I do that on the left hand for double stop. So. Or just keep the fingers down and barely move to the string. Because if you look at your bridge, A and D string, all of them are really pretty close. That bridge is just, if you look at that, we always think they're farther than they are. Faster things, anything fast, we're going to use our smaller muscles, wrist, fingers.
Okay,
and the rest of it just follows.
Okay, great. That's a great tip. I think that's a good practice exercise for those things too. There's a lot of that in this excerpt.
The big thing that I have to say is just be thorough. Really listen. When you do it slowly, it's not just to do it slowly so you can hear it better.
Right.
And that establishes so that your hand and your ear are trained. So when you get faster, usually it doesn't take as much time.
Yeah. Put in the work at the front, right? So that you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I know that we might fall into some rhythmic traps in here. This part may be a good place to practice with a metronome.
I actually recommend exactly to do that throughout the entire thing.
Okay.
And start way under, like half tempo. Once you've practiced all your individual things, put it all together and then gradually build. But this spot especially, where you have the circle, the one quarter note before is where the second violins come in with the theme. The first violins become accompaniment there. So we've got to totally fit with their melody.
So if we pull up the score here, you should absolutely listen to multiple recordings of this. Michael Harper mentioned in the video I just did with him, multiple recordings, multiple good recordings, right? Not just one recording.
If you go to YouTube, most of the major repertoire, you can do one recording where it's scores going across the whole time.
Yeah, that's a great resource. This is the score that I've pulled up here. And like a lot of our excerpts, this score is readily available to download for free off of IMSLP. So you can go and download that. And I think the spot we are talking about, and just like you said, Melissa, you can see the second violins right here have come in with the melody. And then the first violins are accompanying them. So if you know that, if you've studied the score and you know that, you're much less prone to rush here because you're listening for the second violins in your head.
Exactly, and you don't want to play as loud either, which is a good thing, because then you can play a little softer and listen and respond.
Right.
Until the next bar, right?
Right, you have this crescendo and then the next bar coming up there.
And you take back over.
Right here. So that is another thing that we listen for in the audition room. I mean, of course, we listen for rhythm and intonation first, but then we listen for your knowledge of the style and of the score, because when you're playing an orchestra, those two things are really, really important.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
One more thing about the phrasing and the articulation, where we just ended up. Mm-hmm. You'll notice we go back to the similar articulation as the beginning of the out tempo. But the longer we go, the phrase gets longer and longer, and we have a crescendo. And then it ends up on the next line toward the end that we're slurring. It becomes legato.
And
right. I think that's in an effort to open up the sound.
So
we want to really play legato there.
And we're talking about right here before.
Exactly, yeah. It all builds. Then we have more and more slurs.
Okay, great. Well, that's a great overview of the excerpt. Any other tips or tricks? I know that you have given me an annotated part with fingerings and things, which I will post at the end of this video for anyone's reference.
One thing about the very opening. This opening reminds me of the opening of Don Juan. It's supposed to be big, but it's fast. So a lot of times we'll force and we'll work too hard. We have to, with your bow, you don't want to press too hard. At first I would practice like that, just with one. And then you use almost no bow. Okay? So that you can fit them all in and not get all tight.
So when you're using that little bow in the first bar right here, how do you make sure you have enough bow to be really big when the notes get longer?
Excellent. You make sure and start low enough in the bow.
Okay.
Because you want, and this is a really good point, you want to look ahead. Where do you want to be in the bow for this? Right about here, close to the frog. So you're going to work your way a little bit lower, but you don't want to start any lower in the middle of the bow.
So Melissa, these chords at the beginning, how would you handle those in an orchestra?
We would divide the second chord, outside person, top two notes, inside lower notes, and then we would divide in the third bar, inside, outside. So for your audition, just assume that you're on the outside. Play the top two notes in the second bar and play the upper note of the octave. The upper note, rest of the phrase.
Okay, yeah, so you just assume you're an outside player.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then you want to make sure that you're looking, anytime you're learning something new or something you've done before, to remind yourself, look at what's on the page. It's very important. You've got accents, you've got a retard. Mm-hmm. If you don't do the retard or the accents, then it shows you don't really know how the piece is put together.
Is there anything else you wanted to say? I know the phrasing is, you mentioned some of the appoggiaturas and the suspensions.
Yes, the appoggiaturas. When you have something like an appoggiatura, as in the downbeat of the tempo, the following bar.
I threw that term out, but I guess we should define what an appoggiatura is for some of our students. An appoggiatura, for those of you who don't know, is a note that is not part of the chord, so it is dissonant, and it happens on a strong beat. So you feel a little bit of a lean, and that's this case right here.
And the way I look at this is so then all of a sudden it becomes a bunch of little short pulses that lead to the F. And then, what do you think when you arrive? You're going to go lighter, right?
Lighter.
More elegant because it says animato and grazioso. So if I were to say one final thought, it would be that you need to have a lot of patience when you're learning something you don't know, and that it's okay to start with the simplest. It's simple so you can succeed, and then add levels of difficulty.
What might be some final steps, like when we've practiced all of these slow things, how might you prepare as you get closer to the audition?
A couple weeks, certainly before the audition, put the recording on and play with the recording. Okay. Not just one, though, several, because they're different interpretations. Mm-hmm. That's not to copy what they're doing, but to feel the flow and to hear the whole orchestra behind you. Yeah. You don't do it a lot, but just enough to feel like then when you go out to play your audition and you're all by yourself, you're hearing them and you're feeling the flow of music in time.
Great. Yeah, so you feel less alone and you're hearing all the parts.
Yes, exactly.
That's a great idea.
You want to start to run through and have mock auditions. Pretend you're auditioning and record yourself.
And yeah, start performing a couple weeks before the audition. Play for your mom, play for your dad, play for your cat. Great. Well, that's really helpful, Melissa. Thank you for being with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I look forward to seeing everybody at sectionals.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay safe.
Take care. Stay healthy.